All right, so today we have the Four Nights of Apocalypse Chapter 70 review. This one was weird because it came out like Sunday night, which is like way earlier than it normally is. I know that like the people that were doing the translation for it are not anymore, so it's kind of going to be, it may be touch and go for a while. You can definitely check out the Seven Deadly Sins Discord or the Seven Deadly Sins. I want to say it's also on the Reddit page if you're trying to stay like up to date as fast as possible on when the chapters come out. Like that's kind of what I try to do. But this review is going to be a little bit different. I'm just going to come out and say it. The Star Knight Visor or the Star Visor Knight is Jericho. It's like how we were talking about last week. I'm pretty sure, I know for a fact I wasn't the only person who was thinking this, but it does end up being Jericho. The most of the chapter is basically it kind of teasing the fact of it could be Jericho, which is definitely kind of hype. Obviously, if you've never read Seven Deadly Sins or didn't read it really in depth. You wouldn't have had any idea. But looking at the previous series, it's pretty obvious, or at least throughout this chapter, it was pretty obvious until the very end when it actually does happen. But at the beginning of the chapter, it is Jade and Cheon facing off against Jericho, and she does strike them immediately, to which they both block it. And I thought this, for at least the beginning of the entire fight in the chapter, was really hype because like she talks about her initiative victory and the fact that like Cheon didn't even notice that like that she put some kind of spell on them to basically drop their body temperature, and they were basically going to freeze. So they were too cold to actually do anything. Now part of me is kind of curious because I wonder if this would have like froze them to death or just made them so cold to where they were just unable to fight. Because if she was only going to make them unable to fight, then I don't know exactly how evil Jericho may or may not be. That's kind of one of the more curious things. If she was going to kill them, then yeah, she probably is more on the evil side. But if she was just going for like a make you unable to fight, then maybe there could be some good in there and there's some more nuance to this situation than people may be thinking. Another interesting thing before I move on to the stuff with Jericho and Gila is the fact that Cheon has spiritual arts. He has some type of spiritual arts magic. The translation could be a little wonky, but I want to say this is way different. Like the fact that we get a name for this kind of weird magical ability that he has. But I'm going to try not to talk about Cheon too much in this chapter, in this review, because there's a couple things to really bring up. Because the last thing I want to say is when Gila shows up and shoots and shoots her explosion at Jericho and it kind of blows everything away. This was really interesting. I'm not for sure how many other people noticed this or not, but like Cheon has like a scar on his other eye. And I was looking back and we never actually get to see this scar except for right now because his hair is always covering it. Like I don't know, like I highly doubt this is just some type of weird cleaning up issue or weird like error on the page. And it makes me wonder like what the story behind this scar is. Like maybe this could have been another person Tristan may have like hurt. Maybe Cheon like admires Tristan after this kind of event and that's why he has a scar. Who knows? But I just thought this was really interesting, the fact that he has a scar hidden under his hair. I'd love to know what you guys could possibly think about that, or if you guys noticed it or not. But this was just, it was just interesting. But basically, the big thing is Gila does show up to fight against Jericho. We get a mini info dump on her saying that, at age 22, she became the first female by Great Holy Knight in Leonis. And even after that, her sword skills are still top class. So it's really interesting to see how far Gila did go. As we know, she was a little bit younger than Jericho, but not like anything crazy. I think she's like 2 years younger than Jericho. So she's 22. That would make Jericho like 25 or 26, depending on when birthdays fall. But the big thing I was thinking about when these two are going to fight is that this fight was hype, and I'm not a power scaler. I like to always preface when I talk about how strong characters are or any of that kind of stuff. I don't get real sweaty when it comes to power scaling and all of that. But it really makes me wonder how strong they are because this fight didn't really give us a lot of context for how powerful they are, because these are two characters that don't really have any feats against outside characters. Because take the fights we just seen with like say Tristan against the chaos version of Melascula. We know how strong she was previously, so her getting a power up and then Tristan beating that version of her, we have a very good idea of how strong he is, which is more than I can say with Gila and Jericho because they haven't fought anybody in Four Nights to really, well, outside of each other, to really give them something to go off of. The only thing I can kind of speculate is that since Arthur for whatever reason paired Jericho up with Melascula, he must have been confident that if something went crazy wrong, that like she would be able to handle it, which would at very least, or which would at the very least infer that Jericho should be a bit stronger than the chaos, than these two chaos demons, Melascula and Gallon. Like that's it, but it just feels like a lot of assuming, but that's like at bare minimum how strong she should be. And since Gila throughout this chapter was able to keep up and fight with her, Gila, that means she should also be strong, like stronger than the Chaos Demons, which just feels like a lot to me. Like don't get me wrong, this chapter was hype and the fight was really dope. I thought it was done really well. But just thinking that Gila is stronger than like enhanced Ten Commandments. It's a lot. It definitely is. It's just a lot. It feels like what kind of training did she do in these 6 years to get that powerful? And then you got to think about the other knights that are probably stronger than her, like Gil Thunder and like Hauser are probably still above her in terms of battle power or in terms of combat powers or what is it, combat class. So it's like they too should then also be much stronger than the chaos versions of the Ten Commandments or the chaos versions of at least Melascula and Gallon at the bare minimum. So it just seems it just makes me wonder what could have happened to make them be that much stronger. Because I feel like just training in 6 years should not be enough to make you that strong. Because like when you think about it, it is exponentially stronger than like say Dreyfus and like Hendrickson, which were the previous two like Grandmasters or Great Holy Knights or which were the previous two Grandmasters, which is even still much stronger than say Zartarus, who was like the Grandmaster Holy Knight before even them. So it's just the whole power creep is just wild right now, assuming all that is true. But basically, as I was saying, the fight is really dope with those two going back and forth, Jericho and Gila, that is. And it doesn't really seem like neither one of them can really get the edge up on each other. Obviously, if you were watching Seven Deadly Sins, you know that these two actually sparred quite often. So kind of Jericho asking for a round after 6 years was kind of like, they had a very happy sad feel to it because now they're enemies and they're having an actual fight and not really sparring. And then towards the end of the fight, Gila does land a pretty decent blow on Jericho to blow her helmet off, and she's saying, didn't you swear to yourself on that day you would carry the will of your older brother who gave his life protecting you and surpass him as a holy knight? Which is really, really important because I feel like for a lot of people, they may not deep dive into Jericho's character, or when you think about Jericho's character, the first thing you think about is her connections to Bond and like Elaine and how she was, the best side chick ever, essentially. Like it was like Bond sidelined her, and now she like trains and raises his son. But like before all of that, Jericho's biggest driving thing for her character is her brother. That was the whole reason why she wanted to be a holy knight in the first place. When she became a holy knight, she idolized her brother, wanted to be just like him, and all these kind of things, but still was ending up a little bit inferior. Like if you go back to like, with the well, like especially when she turned it into a demon, how she went after her brother. Like it was, her brother is a huge part of who she is. And I don't know how many people remember this, but her brother did die trying to protect her in the fight against Grey Road. Grey Road had basically trapped her and a bunch of other people in these things that were going to turn her into a demon. So he froze them so they weren't able to necessarily progress and turn into demons, which did save her. But he basically drained all of his magic trying to do that and died. And then afterwards, Merlin saves everybody. He still dies, but Jericho hears the news, and that's when she unlocks her magic and all of that. But it's like, it's one of those things where she never really got like some really decent closure on her brother. So outside of Bond, her brother Gustav is really the most important character to Jericho. So it's kind of odd that she would be going against something that feels like her brother would definitely hate. Now, as for why Jericho would have turned to Arthur's side, this is kind of something that I've already seen people kind of debate about back and forth. For me, I kind of stand kind of on two sides on what I think could have happened. The first thing I think would be brainwashing. Obviously, we know, as we've seen with Gallon and Melascula, Arthur could have brainwashed her, maybe took advantage of some negative emotions, or just full-on brainwashed her normally to join his side. This could have happened when, her and Lancelot were together, when they got transported somewhere. We don't know what was going on with that. Or like any kind of way. Because as we even seen with like Ard, Arthur is kind of like manipulative in a way. So it's like I could definitely see him using some of these kind of tactics to kind of get her over to his side, manipulating her in combination with some magic and brainwashing. The other way I kind of think she joined his side is if she did it willingly, and by the choice of, like, say Arthur promised her something along the lines of reviving her brother, because Jericho does kind of blame, or if she hasn't stated it, it seems like she does blame herself a bit for her brother's death. So being the most important character, if Arthur was like, hey, I'll bring your brother back if you work for me, it seems like Jericho may do that, because as we know, she is a somewhat selfish character. Not like horribly selfish, but she does kind of think of herself a lot. She's not like a totally selfless character, I guess, is my opinion of her. So I could kind of see her doing this, in my opinion. And those are basically the two things that I think could be it. Now, there is a third thing that I see people talking about that I absolutely hate. I was talking about it with RTL Faith, and it was just she could secretly hate fairies because of how Elaine ended up with Bond, and like she wants to destroy all the other races because of basically her saltiness about it. Which I hope it's not some overly simpy reason. I know Nakaba likes to make his characters simp really hard for the characters that they love, but I really hope that is not the case. As for next chapter, chapter 71, we already have the title for it, at least in this, and it is a friend's transformation. This, like 99%, is going to be probably the beginning, if not all, of what could have happened to Jericho, at least from one perspective, that made her evil. I kind of feel like maybe Lancelot's gonna pop up, and then he might fill everybody in, or even it could be Jericho giving some exposition on why she did the things that she did, or why she's doing the things that she's doing. I think one of those two. I definitely think there's gonna be a Lancelot and Jericho face off in the next chapter at the bare minimum. That's definitely what I think. All in all, this chapter though, I probably give this one like, it was like a 7. I mean, the Jericho reveal was kind of obvious to me. Like, honestly, like I kind of already expected it to be Jericho, so it wasn't that crazy to me. It's really getting a 7 because Gila was one of my favorite characters, and to see her and Jericho fight in a more serious manner was kind of hyped to see. Oh wait, the one thing I did forget about though is that since it was Gila that she was fighting against, I know I was saying that maybe she could be trying to rescue Gila or save her, because remember, Jericho is after somebody in this dungeon, so it kind of begs the question of who is she after? Kind of what I was saying in the last video of like, everybody important we know of is already accounted for, like all of the other holy knights. So it's like, what knight could she be after? And it really makes it seem like it would be Death Pierce, but again, I feel like they're saving most of the Death Pierce stuff for the Grudge of Edinburgh movies. So it's like, I'm not really for sure who it could be. I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see on that one, because it just has to be a new character at this point. It feels like there's no old characters you could really rehash into this role, in my opinion. But that's kind of my thoughts on that. I would like to know who you guys think this person is that she could be after, as well as how you guys feel about, or as well as what you guys think is the reason Jericho is evil. And lastly, what's the deal with Cheon's scar? I'm very curious about that. Like it's so small and insignificant right now, but it is very interesting at the same time. That being said, you guys all make sure you like the video as well as subscribe to the channel and enjoy the rest of your day. I will see you all in my next video.